Hello, everyone. Thank you for letting me share part of your time today. It is greatly appreciated. Before I forget, don't you forget to click all the fancy buttons that you need to click. The like, share, subscribe, notifications, all those things. And so I don't get messages. Books are available at authorjerrymitchell.com, or you can go to givegod90.com and follow the links from there. All right. What if I told you there are a lot of people living all over the earth who were suffering from something that psychologists call a mental disorder? Okay? And the people have no idea that they even have it. Okay? Now I'm going to use an extreme example. And I hope this is a very, very extreme example. If you were to honestly believe that the moon was made of green cheese, all right, and somehow you were able to go to the moon, okay, they take you up on a rocket ship, they take you to the moon, you pick up a moon rock, all right, you get back in the spaceship, you take off your spacesuit, and you smell the rock. It doesn't smell like green cheese. You feel it. It doesn't feel like you think green cheese should feel like. You might even try tasting it, and it tastes like dirt instead of green cheese. But you've got proof in your hand that you picked up yourself that the moon's not made of green cheese, but you still continue to insist that the moon is made of green cheese. That is what the psychologist would consider a disorder called denialism. Denialism is considered a type of mental disorder. Now, that's an extreme example. That is a very, very extreme example. Back to reality. Many years ago, I was talking to a pastor, and he was convinced that the pyramids survived the flood of Noah somehow. Couldn't explain it, but survived. And I took him back to Genesis chapter 6, part of chapter 7, chapter 9, where he himself read that the whole earth would be destroyed and everything on it. Now, he had evidence that, he's a pastor, he's claiming the Bible's true, had it in his hand, had just read it, and yet still would deny that the pyramids were built after the flood. Now, here's one that will cause some people to be upset. If you think the Bible implies a flat earth, yeah, I'm going there. Even though there's nothing in the Bible to indicate it, when you become faced with absolute proof that the earth is a sphere and it's easy to do, anybody can do it, all you have to do is look, watch, see things. It's possible. But yet you still continue to say, no, it's got to be flat. It's got to be flat. I know it says it somewhere. I know. And it, even though it doesn't, right? And the one verse out of Samuel that they used, this proves it. Nope. Sorry, it doesn't. It's talking about people, not the earth. That's denialism. When you're faced with facts, proof, evidence, but you still hold on to something false. That's denialism. Millions of people all over the world, they just hold on to Yeshua, Jesus being crucified on a Friday afternoon, rose on a Sunday morning, and somehow it's possible to fit 3 days and 3 nights between Friday afternoon and Sunday morning. Am I hitting a little close to home? I probably am. Probably am. What if millions of people all over the world were convinced that the God of Abraham, a God who he himself says, I will never change, right? Malachi 3:6. What if he changed his mind? What if he changed his mind and he said, I'm going to switch the Sabbath from the day that I first rested from creation, and y'all can do it on a Sunday. It's okay. From the seventh day of the week to the first day of the week. Not that big of a change, right? Now, if you've read my books, you will see how I do absolutely lay out the biblical reference that will offer the reader the proof they need, hopefully, to show that Yeshua wasn't crucified on a Friday and rose on Sunday morning. In my books, I give you the proof that the church was the ones who changed without authority, right? They had no authority to change the Sabbath that our Creator established. And I show you where to find it. Proof, absolute proof that the church itself did that with no authority. Now, I have to confess, there are times I have my own bouts with denialism, kind of. If I'm working on something and I measure it very carefully 2 or 3 times, and then I cut it or turn it or do whatever I'm doing with it, and it comes out just a little too big or too small. If it's too big, it's an easy fix. If it's too small, it's not that easy to fix, right? But I know when I measured this several times, this is the measurement. When I lock it in, if I'm depending on what I'm doing, if I lock it in on a micrometer, I know what it's supposed to be. But sometimes it still wants to come out just, when I say a hair, I mean probably less than a hair, out of size. If I'm working with wood, it's not that much. A hair is not much. But, an inch, yeah, that's much. You can't, I don't have a board stretcher. It just can't be done. It's aggravating when that happens, isn't it? I know I measured it right, but even though it comes out wrong, my pride and my arrogance are saying, you did that right. You did that right, even though the proof is in my hand that I didn't. Okay? And I think that's why it's very, very difficult for some people to accept that something they have been told by someone they trusted could be wrong. And they believe the moon is made of green cheese, right? No matter what, they're going to believe that. They believe that somehow you can fit 3 days and 3 nights between Friday afternoon and Sunday morning. They honestly believe that a God that they claim to trust will change, even though he never did. 1,700 years of tradition doesn't magically become truth just because we want it to be. 4,000 years of traditions building upon other traditions do not become scripture because that's how we want it to be. The moon's not made of green cheese because we want it to be. So when we are so arrogant, when we are so prideful that we just refuse to accept documented, observable evidence, proof that we can hold in our hands, we are suffering from denialism. We're denying the truth, and we're replacing it with something other than the truth. Even though we often think people who are diagnosed with some terminal disease or something terrible, and they're like, no, it can't happen to me. That is a form of denialism, yes. But think of someone who doesn't want to believe that their spouse is committing adultery. That is a form of denialism, even though they might have pictures. Their spouse might have said, I've been doing this, and they don't want to believe it. The fact is, denialism can lead to a lot of things. It can lead to depression. It can lead to suicide eventually, if left untreated. The fact is, there are many of us who, because of what we have been taught by people we trust, we believe that no matter what someone else says, no matter what proof and evidence there is, I'm going to deny it. Right? We allow ourselves to be in denial. Now, I could make a very bad joke about Egypt, because you're in denial, right? But I won't. What I want you to, I hope you will start thinking about until next time, is what are you holding on to? In spite of overwhelming evidence that may be contrary to what you were told, what you were taught, is your pride, is your arrogance causing you to be in denial over something? I'm sure there might be something. Most of us have that. A lot of us have that. Well, my mama said, if I, pick your poison, right? I've tried mom's formula for cleaning that spot off the wall and it's just not working. But I know it will eventually. Well, if you rub long enough, you're going to eventually wear it down. Yeah. Maybe you ought to try a different formula. But there's a lot of things like that we do. And it causes us to be in denial. So think about that. Think about that. Also, I need to tell you that next week there won't be the regular podcasts. And if you're following on social media, the things I put out every day may be not put out every day. Our kids are going to be here from Colorado, and I'm going to spend some time with them. So don't be alarmed. After next week, I will be back, regular scheduled programming and all that good stuff. But think about what you may be in denial over. Are you suffering from denialism? How bad is it? This is going to sound funny, but did somebody tell you, and are you convinced that bleach kills mold? Because it doesn't. The evidence is there. It can't. It's impossible. It makes it grow, but it can't kill it. But if you just know, if you use enough, well, you're suffering from denialism. We all have it from time to time, some worse than others. Think about what you've been told, what is different and true, because what somebody might have told you might not be exactly the way it is. There is a ministry that says test everything. I think it's 119 uses that. Test everything. And that's what we have to do. That's what we have to do. We have to test everything. Is this true? And there's a lot of stuff on the internet right now going around. And a lot of it's AI, and a lot of it's clickbait, and a lot of it's junk. Test everything. And when I say everything, I mean everything. What are you suffering from? What denial are you suffering from? How bad is it? And more importantly, are you willing to change? Are you willing to change? Really? Are you willing to change? So think about that until next time. And until next time, I do wish you many, many blessings, everyone.